Her Opinion Show, the podcast you didn't know you needed. Real talk, bold truth, her voice, her vision, her rules. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Her Opinion Show. Today we have a special guest with us, but the title's actually it's powerful. I feel like this title, it's a great episode today.
And it's about time we talked about it.
Yes. So today is Turning Pain into Power, the Summer Willis story. So it's an amazing story. I'm not going to tear it up and try to talk about it. I'm going to let you deliver it because you're doing such amazing things. But anyways, guys, this is Summer Willis. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me.
Yes, of course. We're glad you could be here.
Yes.
But break it down for us. Tell us how this whole journey got started.
Yeah, well, the start of the story is not very pretty and It's not very fun to talk about, but I believe it started 10 years ago. I was a sophomore at the University of Texas. I got invited to a fraternity party.
So you were really young.
I was really young. I was 19 years old and still believed in the good in the world and sunshine. And someone handed me a drink and I drank it. We're at a fraternity party and I don't remember much after that. I remember running so fast and face planting on the concrete and looking at my hands and my knees and knowing I should be in pain, but not feeling anything. And the next thing I remember is being in a really hot shower. Like I was trying to scrub something off of me that I didn't remember what. And so I woke up the next morning and I was naked and there was someone who I considered a friend in my bed. And I said, "What happened?" And he started laughing. He said, I'll never forget the laugh.
I bet.
He said, "You kept on saying no. You kept on trying to push me off." And as if that wasn't bad enough, the fraternity wrote about it a few days later, bragging about what happened to me.
They were bragging about what happened as if it was like a good thing.
Yeah, he had gotten out of jail like 2 nights before from drunkenly running from the cops.
Oh my
and they were like, he got laid right after getting out of jail.
Oh my goodness.
And it's interesting because I talked to fraternity guys because that was like our brother fraternity. And they either said like, "We know that's not true, like you would have never," or one guy was like, "Yeah, there was a group of us actually fighting for who got to take you home because we realized how drugged you were." And so that just tore my life apart. And I didn't leave my dorm room for a long time and stopped going to classes, which I was such a nerd in college. Was like, the classes are the best part.
Right.
And I just let that eat alive at me. I didn't want to tell anyone what happened because I felt like it was my fault. Like I shouldn't have went, blah, blah, blah. All these things that society kind of teach us. And
it's like, why were you there? You shouldn't have put yourself in that situation.
Or have the drink.
Except the drink. And so I just
or just be vulnerable and trust the people around you.
Yeah.
You know,
they were my friends.
That's the sad part is when you think people are your friends. And, you know, I mean, obviously today we are obviously like, don't do this, don't do that. Like we hear a lot more about that now. But I don't know in that time that it happened to you, did your parents, when you sent you off and said, don't, you know, take drinks or what, any of those things, because you were going to a big college. That's a big college.
It is. I don't remember the warnings. I remember my mom having a friend that happened to, and she like told me the story. But in my mind, it's like, that wouldn't happen to me. And you felt like you're in a safe place. But it is interesting. It's like, daughters, don't do this, where it's like, no, the real thing is don't rape people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
that's true. That's the main part. That's the main thing we should be focusing on. But unfortunately, there's evil people out here. Like they're looking
to take advantage. Yeah.
And I think
any
it's like,
opportunity that they have for it.
Yeah. Most people, if they're rapists, they're serial rapist. And, you know, most people, it's like 80% of people are raped by people they know that are in their, you know, network.
That's what, and then they try to put it in their minds that, that's not what happened. In their minds, they think, you know, you were okay with it, you were joking, or whatever the whole thing. They try to justify it in their mind.
But in your case, they're bragging about it.
Yeah, they're bragging and sharing it to everyone in the fraternity. And it's like, how many other people did they do that
So no consequences were?
No.
Ever?
No, I am working on it, but that's all I can say.
Okay. Yeah. And we respect that.
Support. Yeah.
But I guess going back to the story, it took me years and years to crawl out where I felt like a halfway normal human again. And I did things that I loved. I joined Teach for America and was working at a Title I school. Then I went to Peace Corps and I married the most handsome volunteer. And we had 2 beautiful babies. And I think it was becoming a mom and looking at my babies and realizing like, they deserve better. They deserve the woman that I used to believe I could be, someone who was strong and resilient and confident. So I had this super logical idea to find my strength. And so I signed up for 29 marathons in a year.
Nice. And that's a lot. And, needless to say, my next question is, where do you get your resilience from? And obviously your kids. I mean, that is a huge thing to say. If I'm going to be strong for somebody, it should be them.
Yeah.
And then you went all in.
I did. And my husband was like, wait, you said 29? Because I think most people say like, I'm going to try and run a marathon. And like, I couldn't run a mile at the time. 4 months postpartum, like wasn't sleeping through the night, breastfeeding. And I signed up and I was going to start in
Did
3
you actually
months.
say 29 in the beginning?
Yeah.
What was the number?
I was
Like
turning
in a
29
year?
in 3 months.
I knew there
you're
had to
doing
be
it
something.
like 29 in 1 year?
1
Yeah,
year.
when I turned 29. So I
wow.
completed the challenge.
Okay.
And
You're not a quitter.
Amazing.
You're not a quitter. Okay.
I did it. I learned how to train. I hired an endurance coach that I had been looking up to on social media. I reached out. She taught me how to run and to get in shape. I hired a nutritionist because it was like, I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And I think, yes, I found strength in the runs, which is like the logical what I wanted to find. But what I found that gave me more strength was like a community. So I started running and having these conversations, and I finally opened up and told the whole world via social media about my story. And I thought people were going to be like upset or judge me, and there's just so much support and love, and it made me realize like I didn't have to hide this. I didn't have to keep
There's
this.
no shame.
Believe it or not, I did marathons. So when I was going through my divorce, it was one of the lowest points of my life because I ended up being a single mom of 3 boys. Wow. And I started doing marathons, believe it or not.
I believe it.
I did. Well, I started off with the 5K, 10K, then I did half a marathon, and I did the full marathon.
Ooh, yeah.
So I did it 1 year, and it was actually one of the hottest days of and it's in January. It was in January, and it was the hottest day, and it was super humid, and it was raining that day, and I had blisters and everything. But I think what got me through, and it's probably what gets you through, is just being able to go past all that pain, everything, and just feeling that I accomplished this. I did this. You know, it's a step forward,
And every time you do a hard thing, getting to the 5K, the 10K, you're like adding a drop in this bucket that's reinforcing the idea like you're strong, you do hard things. And it just, I don't know, I feel like a whole new person after that.
Exactly. That's how I felt. No, I haven't done it again. Maybe I'll start doing it. I got to start running, but these knees are not like they used to be.
Listen, I look up to anybody who runs because it's not for me. People are like, oh, there's healing. You feel great. I'm like, no,
it is. There's a higher run.
It's not. And it's not my calling. I'll tell you that much. Because it's never, I've tried it and people, I'm like, okay, fine. They'll trick me and say, sign up for this walkathon. It doesn't turn into a walkathon. And I'm like, no, I still say no. Even Orange Theory, I was like, but I'm not running on that treadmill. And then here I am running because everybody's running. And I hate it when I leave. But no, I do love that what's good for you, what works for you, what gives you what you need at the time to heal. And I feel like 29 that's a lot.
Oh, for sure.
So was it something different for every marathon? Was it like one more accomplishment? Or was it just because every time is like when you're just outside of your body maybe?
Yeah, I made 29 just the goal because it's like that's so many, and I needed it to be a year-long goal. I needed a goal to be able to pull myself out of that slump. But after I did one, like your 5K to 10K, it's like, well, what else can I do? So I accidentally started my marathon journey with 3 marathons in 3 days.
Oh, no.
Lake Tahoe.
Girl.
And I thought it was going to be like a flat Texas lake, but it was 7,000 of elevation gain and the altitude.
Wow.
And they lost my breast pump.
Oh no!
The airlines did, and so I couldn't raise my arms, and so it's like every time I did
pain, you did that
I was
in pain,
so much pain, and I did it so slowly, but I finished, and I would cry, and I'd be like, I'm stronger than I think, and so I did add challenges, like I got a world record for running a marathon with a mattress.
Breast melt? Oh, I was
with a breast pump.
Maybe the next one.
I think you need the breast pump.
Well, yes.
No one's talking about that one.
No, with a mattress, because I started hearing so many survivor stories. It was like this metaphor for I want to carry our pain and I want to do something about it. So I did that around Central Park on Women's Day. It was a real twin-size mattress.
How did you do it?
I don't know.
I know that's heavy. I can only do,
and it's really awkward.
I know
who I'm below,
like,
and it would blow.
I need a new mattress. I know who I'm calling.
Mine has a lovely phoenix on it because that's
it's embedded,
symbol.
Right? The whole.
Yeah.
No, I thought you meant your body is the phoenix in the mattress from carrying it the whole time.
There's a phoenix.
But you painted it. Yes.
Yeah, because that's what it felt like this journey was. I ran 100-miler. It was 105, but that was something I never believed I could do. But it was right after my grandpa's passing, and I took time to be with him. So it threw my schedule. It changed what I originally thought. And so it's like I had to do 13 marathons in 8 weeks to finish at the end. And so that's where the 105-mile came in. And I got second place. And at the beginning of the year, I couldn't run a mile. And then finally, most recently, I finished the 29. But it's like, what else can I do? Because I started working on policy with the Texas legislature. And I decided to crawl a marathon. Never been done before.
What do you mean, like crawl? Like
hands and knees.
So an actual crawl.
Yeah, an actual crawl.
Did you have like knee pads?
I had knee pads.
Okay.
We had 6 pairs because
and then you had gloves on, right?
Gloves.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Came prepared, but that was the most excruciating
still,
physical
even with
pain.
that, with that, you'd probably still get.
I have a fracture in my knee still from it. It was insane, and I had a life-changing moment during this crawl because it took me, I think, 13 hours to get to 13 miles, and my knees hurt so bad. Every step was just such terrible pain, and it was 2 a.m. and I was supposed to keep on going for another 13 hours. And I was alone on the track. It was 2 a.m. And I just started crying because I was like, I failed. Like I failed everyone. The legislators that were going to come finish the marathon with me, they weren't going to show up. The news wasn't going to show up and talk about sexual assault. But then I I read my shirt, and it says there's strength in crawling. There is hope in standing tall, and there will be change. And for the first time in my life, I finally gave myself permission.
I know, that's awesome.
To stand up. And the next day, when I got to the Austin Marathon, I was never supposed to be at that 13.1 mile mark. I was supposed to be way further. But that's where I was, and I was going to run it with a fracture in my knee. But I was going to finish. I was.
That is amazing that you're saying that, because I don't mean to cut you off, but like a lot of times we'll just quit. Instead of saying, I give myself permission to just finish.
Yeah. It's such a mental thing.
However way I can, I'm going to finish. Even if it's a different, because we all have this vision of what we want, but you can change it. We're the only ones who hold ourselves back.
When I did and I don't mean to talk about my story, but I completely understand, because when I was doing my 26, I didn't train for it, but my brother had cancer. And so he, had stage 4 cancer, which he ended up passing away that year. But I did it for him. So I said, if I can finish this 26 miles, you can go through the struggle with cancer. So I did it for him. And that was the only reason why I did. But I was one of the last ones. There's the bus, because they have a bus that picks you up because you're the last one. Literally, the bus was chasing me the whole time. And I was like, I'm not going to let it. I'm not going to.
They're not picking me up.
They're not picking me up. That bus was there the whole time. And it had even, stopped and said, do you want to get on? I'm like, nope. But I finished it, but it was it was the most painful thing. So it was it was a mental thing that I'm sure that you had at that moment, that you said, I'm just going to finish this. I'm going to do this. And, changed everything.
It's a reminder always, like, if I can do that.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I obviously don't sit here and look at you and doing that and say, if she can do that, I can do it. You have to have your own pivotal moment
for sure.
that tells you, if I could do this, I can do that. And I just want to know what came next after that.
The crawl or the
well, so you did the crawl, you got up, and I'm sure you still got all the promotion that you needed and awareness.
They all showed up.
Yes.
Awesome.
And it was meant to be. But then what was your next goal after that?
So it was crazy because when I finished that, I invited representatives, congressmen to come finish with me. And one of them looked at me and she was like, I'm going to name this bill that defines consent in Texas, because that was the problem with mine. Because one person handed me a drink and another one took advantage of me. That's a loophole for rapists. So it doesn't count. My rape doesn't count.
Wow.
And that... how can you tell someone the worst thing that ever happened to them doesn't count? And so she named this act the Summer Willis Act. And the last couple of weeks I've been going to Austin and testifying.
Oh, wow. And
it passed unanimously in committee and is going to the floor in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on this policy side.
So this is going to be bad for Diddy too.
Oh, I know.
Sorry.
For sure.
But
but it's going to help so many women. Yeah.
Yeah. Or there's another one. If you say you're a doctor, so someone says like, I give you my consent to do an examination, but they're not really a doctor, but you gave your consent, that doesn't count. So there's all of these loopholes. So finally, by defining consent, it's like we're closing these.
Yeah.
We're closing the loopholes. And so people can't get away with stuff like that.
That's amazing. That's something to know.
It's really sad that somebody has to go through the situation for things to change like that. Because a lot of times these laws and these things and these loopholes is because they don't really define all of that. And so somebody has to go through it to just, draw the line.
Yeah.
And I'll never most likely get my own justice, but I heard a quote that I really liked, and it was, if your dream only includes yourself, you're not dreaming big enough.
Oh my
And so
that's amazing.
my dream is now for this, not to happen again, or for when it does happen again, that they won't have that same situation.
Right.
Texas
and sometimes we don't realize why we have to go through what we go through. It's not about us. It's about who we're helping in the future. And I think that's one huge thing that I think we don't realize in the moment. But when we're making it through those amazing things you're going through now, is like, it's so much more of a bigger cause. But back to the mattress, back to the crawling, there was high heels too. What are all the different things that you did?
Yeah. So for the LA marathon, I decided to do most costume changes during a marathon. And so I had 8 different Barbie outfits. And cute. The final outfit was like a sequin pink gown with high heels. So I finished in heels. And
how many miles did you have to do with the heels?
Just a mile, just the final mile.
But still, that's a mile is still a lot.
If a shoe company ever wants to sponsor me for a high heel marathon, I will do it. But
hey, but heels
how are your feet after that?
Oh my gosh, they hurt.
And I was
crawling after the marathon. Sure. And then I did the London Marathon in a denim jumpsuit because during Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April, we have this day, and it's called Denim Day, and it's based off of this Italian court case where a judge asked a woman what she was wearing, and she said, I was wearing jeans, and he said, they're too tight, this doesn't count as rape.
Oh my god.
And so what we do it's the last Wednesday of every April is people wear denim. And so I started calling myself the denim runner, and I did the London Marathon in all denim. And now in DC, we're hosting a Denim Day March in like 3 weeks.
Love that.
A little busy. Yes. And then we're starting a Denim Day 5K series so that I feel like we need to celebrate survivors. We need to celebrate the strength and the resilience and the struggle that we all go through. And so I want to create something where we can celebrate that. And and we're launching it in a couple of weeks and it'll happen next year.
Yes, amazing.
You created the situation into such a powerful, event, and to bring awareness, because I think a lot of women who have gone through a similar situation, they probably fault themselves, or they, think, oh, well, it was my fault, or things like that, because it's what society says. But bringing that awareness that, no, there's a line, if no is no. And if you're unconscious, it's like an automatic.
It's definitely no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously a lot of them don't care.
Oh, for
that.
sure.
And that's a huge thing.
And being a boy mom, that's one of the things that you're a boy mom?
Yeah,
both
2
of them
boys.
Are boys?
Yep.
Okay. I have 3 boys. And that's one of the things that as a boy mom, I don't have any girls. I wouldn't know how to talk. I mean, I wouldn't know how to talk to them, but I tell my sons, that's one of the things that I tell them. You have to take care, if there's a no, that's it.
Yeah.
You walk away, you step away, don't get yourself in that situation. And that's something that I have to tell them, because they may not know. And ignorance isn't bliss in this situation. It doesn't matter. But as a boy mom, I need to let them be aware, you can't do this.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. And it's like, you don't have to talk about rape with a 5-year-old, but you can say like, hey, if she doesn't want to hug, we keep our hands to ourselves. If they don't want to a handshake, you don't have to do that. And I think those are really simple lessons.
Yes, it
definitely gentlemen.
Is.
Yeah.
Become gentlemen again.
Yeah. But I think it's important to note, since this is what we're talking about today, that 90% of people don't report, that they don't share what happened to them. And I think that shows there's so much shame and so much stigma by y'all having me on today, by people showing up for like the Denim Day 5K, by people even talking about this, it's like helping people realize like, I can talk about this too.
Yes.
So thank you.
And that is one of the things I think for us that's huge, is having this platform, because one is awareness. Because a lot of things we don't know, people do walk around very ignorant and don't think that, a lot of times you do think this could never happen to me or someone I know or that situation. But then when you do know somebody, we tend to, it's okay, you'll be okay. We don't encourage them to speak up. Or even if we see something, we don't speak out about it, And I think that's huge, is to now push that narrative, to start telling people like, if you see something, say something. One, if you're in that situation, the trauma behind it, when you open up and actually let people in and see that, like, just talking about it causes so much healing.
It really does.
It does. And I think that's, some of the things we've been through in our life with domestic violence and things like that, just to be where we're at today, you got to talk about it. You're helping somebody. And your story is like, literally tell somebody like, your trauma is not the finish line. It's not the end. It's the beginning. Yeah. Because of all the things that you're doing and keep doing is like just inspiration, And then look at the wonderful life that you have now.
Yeah.
And if you could tell any women out there, what would you tell them? Maybe that haven't spoke up or might have been in your situation. What encouraging words could you give them?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go to the film script that I wrote to my 19-year-old self right after the rape. And it's, you used to believe that the world was the before and the after the rape, but the after wasn't, you know, all of the terrible stuff. The after was getting up and saying, not today, and everything that comes after that. So not today, get up, keep on going, one step at a time. Poco at poco, right?
Yes. No, that's amazing. Yeah. So listen, some of the things that we talked about was everything that you went through and then all the things that you went to bring awareness. But after all of this, you did say that you had some things coming up, and I just want you to put it out there so everybody knows. So in case they want to show up, support, do whatever it is, or they know somebody that they want to give this information to, please. This is you've got moment. The camera.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And thank you for opening it up. But right now I'm working on a short animated film with world-renowned director Hisco Holsing. And this journey has not been about me. It's been about everyone who's joined along. And so we're crowdfunding, and we're saying if anyone wants to contribute $100 or more, they will be acknowledged in the film. Wow, and awesome. And we're going to submit it to all the big film festivals, but also with all of the speaking engagements and really showing people what it looks like to recover the strength, the resilience, and the heartbreak.
Right.
And then we're also launching our Denim Day 5K, and you can find out more about that by following Denim Day 5K on social medias or going to the website. And we're not selling tickets yet, but you can get like more information. Is that in Houston or? It's going to be in Austin. Nashville, LA, DC, and Chicago, and a virtual component. Go big or go home, right?
I like your sales tactics.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you have any other marathons going on?
I just signed up, and I haven't told my husband this yet, but for the Berlin and the Tokyo marathon.
Hey. So that's gonna be good.
Yeah, it's called the 6-star marathons, but it's Boston, Chicago, New York, and then Berlin and Tokyo are the two I haven't done.
Oh my gosh.
So surprise, honey.
So tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, you can follow me at like Summer Willis on Instagram, or my website is summerwillis.com.
Well, amazing. And cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Till next time.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.